Can I move now to the fact that the COVID NSC met again today. We're meeting weekly, have been for a very long time. The National Security Committee operating focused solely on managing the COVID response. And the vaccination program today hit another historic record. 184,000 vaccines done in a day. That is the equivalent per head of population of 2.36 million doses in the United States a day, or 481,000 in the United Kingdom when you express it as per head of population. So we are really hitting these marks now. More than 1 million doses being done in a 7-day period, 184,000 is a new mark for a daily record, 104,000 primary care vaccines administered. So another record for our GPs. That primary care model is the workhorse of the vaccination program that is delivering those vaccinations and getting those jabs in arms as quickly as we possibly can. And I note that there's some 6 million AstraZeneca vaccines now that have been administered in this country, which is incredibly important. And so we continue to go from strength to strength. Now, as I said yesterday, I take responsibility for the vaccination program. I also take responsibility for the challenges we've had. Obviously, some things within our control, some things that are not. And I'm keen to ensure, as we have been over these many months, that we've been turning this around. I'm certainly sorry that we haven't been able to achieve the marks that we had hoped for at the beginning of this year. Of course I am. But what's more important is that we're totally focused on ensuring that we've been turning this around. And if I give you some statistics, just to give you an idea of how much things have been turned around in just the last month. If you go back to the 21st of June until now, we have seen the double-dose vaccination rates almost triple in the last month. We've gone from just over 5% to 15% double dose today. We now have 36% of those over 15 years old who have received a first dose. For those who are over 50, if you go back a month, we're at 6% on double dose. We're now at 20% on double dose in just 1 month. And for those who are over 70, double doses of just over 9% a month ago, and today we're at 33.9%. Over a third of those who are aged over 70 have received both doses of the vaccine, and of course that figure in aged care is well north of 80%. 76% in total now of those aged over 70 have received their first dose of the vaccine. And so we will continue to press forward. I also note that since I made some remarks about the AZ being available right across the population for those who wish to go and see their GP, I made those comments on the 28th of June. There have been 76,595 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine administered to people under the age of 40 since that day. So if people wish to do that, they should go and see their GP. Of course, there's the informed consent process, but there is, and that's first and second doses, so just under 40,000 first doses and almost 37,000 second doses of AZ. The vaccines work. That was confirmed to us again today by the Chief Medical Officer. Whether it's AstraZeneca or whether it's Pfizer or indeed the Moderna vaccines that will be coming soon later this year, these vaccines work. The vaccines mean that you're less likely to get COVID, you're less likely to transmit COVID, you're less likely to get serious illness from COVID, and you're less likely to die from COVID. That's what the vaccines do. And that's what Australians need. To be less likely to get it, to be less likely to transmit it, to be less likely to get a serious illness requiring hospitalisation, and less likely to die from it. It is deeply distressing and upsetting to know that the recent fatalities have involved those unvaccinated in the community, those aged over 50 and particularly aged over 70. The vaccine has been available to over 70s for many, many months, and we need to work even harder to get those vaccines, particularly into the most vulnerable in our community, particularly those aged over 70. Now, I spoke to the Premier of New South Wales last night at some length, and we're in regular contact, as you'd expect. Was in touch with the Victorian Premier yesterday. We're speaking later today. And, of course, in also in constant contact with the South Australian Premier. And in New South Wales, and in particularly in the Sydney area, it is very vital that all those in those vulnerable populations, aged over 70 in particular, but I'd say aged over 60, please go and get your AstraZeneca vaccine as soon as you possibly can. The numbers that we're seeing coming out of New South Wales show that the lockdown is keeping a lid on this. And it's going to be some time, though, clearly, from what the Premier has been saying and the numbers that we're seeing, to see these numbers go down to where we'd like to see them go. But the risk that is there means that it is vital, absolutely vital. And I implore not just those themselves who are over 60 to go and do this. Have the conversation in your family. Talk to your parents. Talk to your relatives who are particularly in that age group. Have the discussion. Offer to book it for them. Take them along. It's important that you get your family, particularly the more elderly members of your family, vaccinated. If the COVID breakout in New South Wales and in Sydney in particular were to extend beyond where it is, then that will of course put older people in the community at great risk. So that risk is accelerating, and it's very important that you take the opportunity to go and get those AstraZeneca vaccines to ensure you're protected and that your family and your community is protected.